God, I hope never. I'd rather die than marry him. She said after her friend jokingly asked when I'd propose. I smiled, finished my drink, and left the bar. She called an hour later, voice shaking, asking why I left. I said, just saving you from a fate worse than death, and hung up. Hey viewers, before we get into the video, make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button if you want more stories like this. Thanks. The bar was all polished concrete and neon glow, the kind of place where cocktails have names like Smoked Regret and cost more than a decent steak. I hated it. Chloe loved it. Maya and Jenna practically lived for it. So there I was on a Thursday night, playing my role. My role was the boyfriend, the driver, the wallet, the listener. I nursed a beer, the lone solid brown bottle in a forest of delicate, colorful glasses. Chloe was holding court, recounting her disastrous presentation. Her hands sliced through the air as she talked, her laugh ringing out sharp and bright, the same laugh I used to find exhilarating. Now I mostly registered its volume. And then he had the audacity to ask for my sources. As if the data visualization wasn't intuitive enough, she finished, rolling her eyes. Maya and Jenna nodded with fervent sympathy. Total power play, Maya said, sipping her violet-hued drink. Classic mid-manager insecurity, Jenna added. Chloe's hand found my forearm, her grip tight, nails painted a shade called boss. Leo gets it, don't you, babe? You know how it is with these tech bro dinosaurs. They all turned to me. My cue. Sounds frustrating, I said, patting her arm. It was the correct line. She beamed, squeezing me once more before releasing my arm to lift her drink, a frothy pink creation called a Paloma Promised. She'd ordered it because the name was iconic. I went back to my beer. I'd already heard this version of the story at home, over takeout. I'd listened. I'd validated. I'd even suggested a diplomatic way to handle the mid-manager dinosaur next time. That advice didn't belong in the bar version. Here, the narrative was martyrdom, not solutions. This was our life. When she got laid off 8 months ago, I covered the rent, cooked the meals, talked her down from 100 panic spirals. I celebrated her new job like it was my own. We'd chosen this very bar to mark her first paycheck. Our spot, she'd called it. I looked at her now, glittering under neon, and felt a familiar fondness, softened at the edges by a fatigue I couldn't quite name. She was beautiful, ambitious, electric. I was the one who made sure the electric didn't burn everything down. The conversation drifted to Jenna's dating app disasters. Chloe leaned into me and stage whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, God, I'm so lucky I don't have to deal with that anymore. Right, baby? She planted an exaggerated kiss on my cheek. I smiled the way you do. Another round arrived. I didn't order one. I was driving. I watched them, 3 beautiful birds preening in the reflective glow of their own lives. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my sister asking if I wanted to help rebuild the carburetor on her old Civic this weekend. A small, genuine warmth bloomed in my chest. Yes, I typed, absolutely. Oh, who's that? Chloe sang, playfully reaching for my phone. I pulled it away. A reflex. Just my sister. Weekend plans. You in that greasy garage? She said, smiling. It was part of the routine. She'd tease my motorcycle project. I'd feign injury. She'd call me her handyman with a wink. It was our dance. Maya, buoyed by her third smoked regret, dropped her elbows onto the table. Her eyes, glazed with alcohol and affection, drifted between us. She looked like someone about to announce a profound drunken truth. You know, she slurred, pointing unsteadily between Chloe and me. You two, you're like solid. It's actually kind of gross. She giggled. Jenna joined her. Chloe wrapped her arm around mine. Aren't we wrapped her arm around mine? We are, aren't we? Weidig. No, I'm serious, Maya insisted, her voice rising. The table beside us glanced over. Like, when's it going to happen, Chloe? When's this guy finally going to put a ring on it? You've been dating forever. The question hung there. Heavy, a clumsy spotlight. Jenna's giggle faded. Chloe's arm around mine tightened for a split second. A memory flashed. What, 6 months ago? Hiking a trail. She'd slipped on loose gravel, and I caught her. We stood there, breathless, hearts pounding from the scare. She looked up at me, mud streaked across her cheek, and said, Don't ever let me go, okay? I kissed her, sweat, and chapstick, and meant it with everything I had. Never. Back in the bar, I waited for the performative blush. Oh, stop, the subtle squeeze that meant maybe soon. Chloe laughed. Not her bright laugh. This one was thinner, sharper, like steel being unsheathed. She slipped her arm from mine and reached for her Paloma promised. She took a long, deliberate sip, eyes fixed on the pink foam. Not on me. Not on Maya. God, she said. The word dropped like ice into the sudden quiet. I hope never. The neon light above us hummed. Jenna's smile stiffened into something brittle. Maya's drunken glow drained into confusion. Chloe set her glass down with a precise click. She leaned forward, her voice lowering into a conspiratorial stage whisper that carried perfectly through the brief lull in the bar's music. He is safe. A total sweetheart. But marry him? She let out a small puff of air. Pure derision. Ugh. I'd rather die than be trapped in that boring little life. The words didn't feel real. They felt like subtitles on a movie I wasn't watching. Boring little life. I saw our apartment, the one I'd painted while she was away at a yoga retreat. The balcony garden box I'd built because she wanted fresh herbs. The comfortable couch where we'd spent 100 rainy Sundays. Chloe, Jenna hissed, a desperate warning. But Chloe was on a roll, fueled by the cocktail in the audience. She flicked her eyes toward me at last, not with guilt, but with defiant amusement, like she'd just delivered a particularly edgy joke and was waiting for me to catch the punchline. I mean, think about it, she said, holding my gaze, daring me to flinch. The nice little house, the nice little yard. Watching him tinker with that greasy bike every weekend for the rest of my life. No thanks, she shuddered. A full theatrical body shake. I'd suffocate. Literally suffocate. The world didn't slow down. It snapped into razor-sharp clarity. The neon hum roared. The condensation on my beer bottle formed a constellation of perfect cold droplets. I could smell her perfume, expensive, citrusy, cutting through stale beer and fried food. And I saw more than the woman in front of me. I saw a montage projected on the polished wall behind her. Her crying in my kitchen after the layoff, whispering, "What would I do without your calm?" Her raising a toast at this very bar, to my rock. Her curled against me on that boring couch, murmuring, "This is all I'll ever need." It had all been a performance. The fondness I'd felt minutes earlier curdled and evaporated, leaving behind a vacuum so pure and cold it was almost peaceful. Maya looked like she might be sick. Jenna stared at the tabletop as if the grain of the wood contained the secrets of the sty. Universe. Chloe's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second when she registered the absolute lack of reaction on my face. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was an astronomer observing a distant star collapse. A deep, unshakable certainty settled into my bones. This was the truth. The first and last completely honest thing she had ever said to me. I felt my lips move. They curved into a small, easy smile. It wasn't bitter. It was the smile of a man who has just solved a complex nagging problem. Her eyes widened, confusion flickering across them. Still smiling, I picked up my half-finished beer and brought it to my lips, draining it in one long, steady swallow. The bitterness was familiar, almost comforting in its simplicity. I set the empty bottle down with a soft final clink. Then I stood. The chair didn't scrape. I moved with a quiet, fluid grace I didn't know I possessed. "Leo." Her voice cracked into a confused squeak. The defiance was gone, replaced by the first flicker of alarm. "Where are you going? Don't be so sensitive." It was a joke. The words bounced off the silent space around me. I reached for my wallet, pulled out 220s, more than enough to cover my beer and a generous share of the smoked regrets and Palomas promised, and laid them flat on the table. A green paper period at the end of her sentence. I turned. I didn't look at Maya. I didn't look at Jenna. I didn't look back at her. I walked past the bar, past the laughing groups, past the hostess, who gave me a curious glance. I pushed through the heavy door, and the cool night air hit my face. It smelled of rain and city. Behind me, faintly, I heard her voice rising in pitch, the performative frustration already cracking into something real. "Oh my God. Is he seriously walking out? Leo, Leo." The city swallowed the sound. I didn't run. I walked to my car, my steps steady again. Missed the pavement. The problem was solved, the equation complete. All that remained were the logistics of absence, and for the first time in 2 years, my mind was perfectly, peacefully clear. I didn't turn on the radio. The frantic pulse of the bar had vanished, replaced by the steady purr of the engine and the rhythmic sweep of the wipers through a fine mist of rain. My hands stayed fixed at 10 and 2. My breathing remained even. I felt like a surgeon after a long, complicated operation. Precise, exhausted, and utterly detached from the emotional wreckage left behind. I parked in my usual spot, our usual spot. The thought carried no weight. It was just asphalt now. The apartment was quiet, still holding the faint imprint of our routine. Her heels by the door, a lipstick-stained glass by the sink, the throw blanket rumpled on her side of the couch. I didn't linger on any of it. I walked past the living room, past the bedroom door, and into the second bedroom I used as an office and den. This was my space, the one she'd half-jokingly called my man cave, her tone suggesting it was a childish indulgence. Here, the shelves held engineering textbooks and motorbike manuals instead of the aspirational decor magazines she loved. A framed map of a hiking trail we'd never gotten around to attempting. My old, comfortable desk chair. The cold, analytical clarity that had settled over me in the bar hadn't faded. It had crystallized. There was no pain yet. Pain required connection, a sense of loss. What I felt was the absence of a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying, the weight of her performance and my quiet complicity in it. I opened my laptop and created a new document. Title: Exit Strategy. The steps flowed from my fingers in a clean, logical sequence, stripped of emotion. Phase 1. Immediate. E-segregation. Move essential items to guest room tonight. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, critical documents. Change passwords on all financial accounts. Joint savings negligible, but still. Forward personal email to a new private account. Phase 2. Physical extraction. Research short-term rentals, Airbnbs. Minimum 1 month. Budget flexible. Contact 2 guys and a truck. Schedule movers for small load, ASAP. Priority items: toolboxes, motorcycle gear, personal books, desktop computer, bike parts. Secure temporary storage unit for select items if new place isn't ready. Pack remaining personal belongings into clearly labeled boxes. Leo. Phase 3. Communication blackout. Block Chloe on phone, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Set email filters to auto-archive anything from her address. Inform landlord via formal email of intent to remove myself from lease, citing cohabitation breakdown. Offer assistance finding replacement tenant or paying penalty fee. Phase 4. Financial and legal disentanglement. Cancel shared streaming services under her accounts. Remove my card from her Uber Eats account. Draft simple civil email outlining division of remaining shared items. TV, microwave, the damn couch. Propose she keeps all. I take none in lieu of further financial discussion. Locate my copy of the lease. I booked a furnished studio across town. Available for move-in the following afternoon. I scheduled movers for 9 a.m., specifying items only from home office, and marked boxes in second bedroom. No items from master bedroom or main living area. I paid deposits with calm, efficient precision. My phone, face down on the desk, began to vibrate. Then again and again. I imagined her either back at the apartment she once shared with Maya and Jenna, or still at the bar, fueled by indignation and confusion. The stead, lighting up with her name. Then a number I didn't recognize. Then maybe Maya's has. I didn't turn it over. The vibrations were distant weather. Around 1 a.m. as I sealed a box of photos, only my family, my friends from before Chloe, it rang again. Unknown number. Some final ghost of the man I'd been 2 hours earlier made me answer. Not to hear her, to formally pronounce that ghost dead. Leo, what the hell? You just left me there. You embarrassed me. Her voice was sharp, weaponized with anger, but the edge was brittle. Beneath it trembled the first note of panic. She'd expected a fight. She'd expected me to come home wounded, to argue, to demand explanations, to beg. She'd prepared for a dramatic reconciliation scene. My silence was a script she didn't know. I looked out the office window at the darkened city. When I spoke, my voice was flat and placid, the tone of a customer service agent closing a call. Just saving you from a fate worse than death. I ended the call. I powered the phone off completely. The silence that followed was absolute. And it was mine. The next 72 hours were an exercise in mechanical motion. I slept deeply and dreamlessly on the guest bed. The following evening, around 6:30 p.m., I heard her key in the lock, late probably after debriefing with her friends. I was in my office. The door closed. I heard hesitant footsteps, a pause outside the door, a knock. "Leo, are you in there? We need to talk." Silence. "This is ridiculous. You can't just hide." A harder knock. Then her footsteps retreating, louder, angrier. Saturday morning. I left while she slept. I met the movers at the curb. They were fast and efficient. In 20 minutes, my motorcycle covered 4 boxes of tools, 3 boxes of books and personal items, and my computer were loaded into the truck. I handed the foreman the key. "Just leave it in. Side the apartment door when you're done," I said. I drove to the new studio. It was beige, anonymous. It smelled faintly of clean linen. A small, bare balcony. I set my single suitcase in the corner. It was a forward operating base. And standing in its emptiness, I felt more at peace than I ever had in our carefully curated, adorable apartment in MZ. The digital deluge began in earnest. It followed a predictable, pathetic curve. Phase 1, righteous anger, from her number after I briefly unblocked it to ensure she received the legal and logistical emails. "Chloe, you're overreacting." It was a joke. "Chloe, my friends think you're being a manipulative jerk." "Chloe, I can't believe you're doing this. After everything I've given up for you." "Chloe, you're really just going to ghost me? What are you, 12? Phase 2, guilt and gaslighting, from Jenna's number. Unknown. "Leo, it's Jenna. Look, Chloe's really upset. She didn't mean it like that. You know how she gets after a few drinks. She loves you. Can you please just call her? A different unknown number." "Likely Maya." "Unknown. Dude, harsh. She's crying." Phase 3, feigned concern and hoovering, from her number again. "Chloe, I'm worried about you. This isn't like you. Where are you staying? Chloe, please talk to me. We can fix this. Chloe, I saw the movers came. You took your bike. Where are you? I'm scared." I read them all with the detached curiosity of an anthropologist observing a primitive culture. I deleted them. I reblocked the numbers. The only message I replied to was from my landlord confirming receipt of my formal notice and my agreement to forfeit my share of the security deposit to break the lease. "Thank you for your prompt and professional handling of this," he wrote back. Rare. On Sunday night, sitting on the floor of my new studio eating takeout sushi, my phone buzzed with a call from my oldest friend, Paul. "Dude," he said, his voice unusually solemn. "What the hell happened? Chloe just called me sobbing. Said you vanished and took all your stuff. She said you had some kind of mental break over a joke." I hadn't told anyone. I'd been operating inside my quiet bubble of action. "What was the joke, Paul?" I asked, my voice calm. He hesitated. "She said, man. She said something about you proposing, and she said she'd rather die than marry you. But she said it was clearly a joke, Leo, that you took it way out of context." I could see her version perfectly. She was the victim of my sudden instability, my cruel overreaction. "It wasn't out of context," I said, lifting a piece of tuna. "It was the context for the last 2 years. I just finally heard it." "Yeah," he grunted at last. "Yeah, okay. She called me, man, to get to you. That's messed up. You good? Need a place to crash?" "I'm good. Better than good. But thanks. I'm rebuilding the porch." Beer and power tools. The first genuine smile in days touched my lips. I'd love that. That was the moment the vacuum inside me began to fill, not with pain, but with something else. The first month became a lesson in self-reclamation. I joined a moto touring club I'd bookmarked years ago and never joined because weekends were our time. I spent a Sunday riding winding coastal highways with them. The engine's roar a kind of physical therapy for my soul. We had beers afterward, men and women whose names I learned, talking about carburetors and road trips with no subtext, no performance. I reconnected with Paul and with my sister Lisa. I helped her with the Civic, our hands blackened with grease as we talked about everything and nothing. "You seem lighter." She observed, without pressing. At work, I accepted a project I'd previously declined, a 6-month development stint requiring deep focus and some travel. My boss, surprised and pleased, said, "I always thought you weren't interested in the grind. Glad to see you leaning in." I hadn't been uninterested in the grind. Glad to see you leaning in. I hadn't been uninterested. I'd just been managing the constant emotional weather system that was Chloe's life. Now, with clear skies, my professional horizon expanded. I met a woman in the moto club, Sarah. She was a graphic designer who rode a vintage Triumph. Our first conversation was about the challenge of finding a good mechanic. There was no flirtation, only shared interest. It was refreshing. I didn't think about Chloe. And when I did, it was the way one thinks of a removed appendix, a former source of trouble, now irrelevant. In the second month, karma began seeping through the sealed doors of my old life. It didn't come from her. It came from a muted indirect source. An email arrived from an address I didn't recognize, but a name I did. Lisa Chun. Lisa had been a former colleague of Chloe's, a quiet, sharp woman who had always been civil to me. The subject line read, "Checking in. Leo, I hope it's okay that I'm emailing you. I got your address from the old team directory. I'm not writing this for Chloe, and I'm not asking you to do anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened. I heard about the bar. Maya told me what Chloe said. Verbatim. I was appalled. I also feel I should tell you, because you were always decent to me, that things have unraveled for her since you left. Her performance at work nosedived. She was constantly distracted, blaming others. She was let go last week. From what I understand, the apartment lease is up next month, and she can't afford it alone. Maya and Jenna aren't letting her move in. Something about drama. Had comments she made about you has circulated in her wider social circle. It hasn't reflected well on her. I'm telling you this not to elicit sympathy, but because I believe in accountability. You were a good partner to her. What she did was cruel, and the consequences are hers to bear. I hope you're well, Lisa. I read it twice. I felt nothing for Chloe. No flash of schadenfreude. No pity. The update read like a news bulletin from a country I once visited and barely remembered. The only real emotion was gratitude for Lisa's simple human decency. I replied with 3 lines. "Lisa, stop. Thank you for your note and your kindness. I'm doing very well. I hope you are too. Best, Ciplio." Her response came almost immediately. "Good. I'm glad." That seemed to trigger something, as if Lisa's message had pierced a spiritual dam. The attempts began again, now laced with raw desperation. Attempt 1, the nostalgia play. A text from another unfamiliar number. A photo of us at the beach a year ago. Sunburned and laughing. I was building an elaborate sandcastle. She was pretending to crown me with a necklace of seaweed. We looked happy. We were happy in that moment. Or I was. Perhaps she was just enjoying being photographed looking happy. Unknown. Remember this. I was so happy. I've never been that happy since. I miss us. I deleted the photo and the message. Attempt 2, the crisis play. 3 days later, my phone rang late in the evening. I was sketching plans for a custom bike modification, a podcast playing softly in the background. I didn't recognize the number, but the hour made me answer. It was her. She was breaking. The sound was raw, unfiltered distress. The kind I had soothed countless times before. But this wasn't about a bad day at work or a friend's slight. This was the sound of a foundation collapsing. "Please." Her voice was shredded, fractured by sobs. "Please, I'm going to be evicted. They posted the notice I lost my job. I have no one. I made a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake." She gasped for air. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I was scared and stupid. I was trying to be cool for them. And I was so stupid. I listened. I said nothing. I looked down at my sketch, at the clean precision of its lines. "Leo, are you there? Please say something. I'll do anything. Counseling. Anything. You're my person. You're my home." I set my pencil down. My voice was calm, clear, and as empty as the studio had been that first night. "You should call a financial advisor," I said, "or a social services agency. They can help with housing resources." Silence. Then a wounded animal-like whimper. "What? Leo? I need you. I am not a resource. I said softly, and I ended the call. Would I tempt 3, the flying monkeys? 2 days later, a new area code. I answered, expecting a recruiter. Leo, sweetie? It's Carol. Chloe's mom. A cold flicker of irritation. Carol had always treated me like a pleasing accessory, a reliable fixture in her daughter's life. Mrs. Dawson. Oh, Leo, we're so worried. Chloe's a mess. She's just a passionate girl. You know how she is. She speaks without thinking. Her voice was syrup wrapped around steel. Don't you think you've punished her enough? She's learned her lesson. She needs you. Be the man we know you are and forgive her. This silly pride isn't worth destroying what you had. What you had. I leaned back in my chair. The manipulation was transparent, the entitlement immense. It explained so much. Dawson, I said evenly, never losing my polite tone. I am being the man I am, and that man is no longer in a relationship with your daughter. Have a good day. I didn't wait for her response. I hung up, Rafad. The anger I might once have felt wasn't there. She was simply another component of the old ecosystem, irrelevant in my new climate. It came that night, a final venomous text from the number she'd used for the crisis call. The desperation was gone, burned off to reveal the bitter ash beneath. This was the unfiltered core, exposed by failure. Chloe, fine. You're just a coward who couldn't handle a strong woman speaking her truth. You were always boring and small, and I'm better off. You did me a favor by leaving. Have fun with your sad, empty life. I read it, and for the first time since that night in the bar, I felt a genuine, deep emotion about Chloe Dawson. It wasn't hurt. It wasn't anger. It was amusement. I didn't reply. I didn't block the number right away. I saved the message. It was the perfect coda, the receipt I never knew I needed. Proof that the fate worse than death she'd feared had actually been mine. The key to a life that was finally authentically my own. I powered down my computer. The studio was quiet. Through the sliding door to my small balcony, I could see the city lights, not as a place I was trapped, but as a landscape of possibility. The unraveling was complete. Hers. Mine was a steady weaving, thread by thread, into something stronger. The silence had spoken. The arc was ready to rise. 6 months to the day after I walked out of that bar, I closed on a house. It was a 1950s ranch-style fixer-upper on a quiet tree-lined street, with a detached garage larger than my old studio apartment. It needed work. The kitchen was a time capsule. The floors squeaked with history. The garden was an overgrown jungle, but the structure was sound. It had space for a workshop. It had a front porch. It was, by any definition, the beginning of a nice little house. The irony wasn't lost on me. It just didn't. Ye sting. It was simply data. The life she had scorned as a prison was now my chosen freedom. I hired a contractor named Rye, a no-nonsense man in his 60s who appreciated my detailed plans and willingness to swing a hammer. We started with the garage, transforming it into a clean, organized workshop. The sound of saws and the smell of fresh-cut wood became their own form of therapy. The work project I'd taken on was a success, earning me a promotion and a significant bonus that went straight into the house fund. Sarah and I went on a few casual group rides and shared easy, laughter-filled beers afterward. There was a quiet mutual interest between us, but no urgency. Everything now moved with a natural, unforced rhythm. The last thread connecting me to my old life was the condo. We had broken the lease, but I'd still been responsible for my half of the penalty. I paid it without complaint, a small price for a clean break. The landlord, appreciative of the lack of drama, offered me first right of refusal when the owners decided to sell. I made a fair cash offer below asking, simple and fast. They accepted. There was no sentiment attached. It was a solid investment in a rising market. I would clean it, paint it, and sell for a profit. A business decision. The day the sold sign went up in front of the old condo felt like the final period on a long, poorly written chapter. That afternoon, as I loaded tools into my truck outside the new house, my phone buzzed. Roll, a local number. I answered, assuming it was Rye or the tile supplier. Leo. Hi, it's Lisa. Lisa Chun. Her voice was hesitant, apologetic. Hi, Lisa. I'm so sorry to bother you. I thought you should know. Chloe knows you bought the condo. Someone from the building told her. She's not taking it well. She's been telling people you're trying to financially destroy her, to lord it over her. I think she might try to confront you. I just wanted you to be prepared. I leaned against the warm metal of my truck. The sun was high, the air clean. Thanks for the heads up, Lisa. I appreciate it, but it's fine. It's just a property. You're a good guy, Leo. Too good. Just be careful. The person she is now isn't the person you knew. She paused. Actually, maybe she is. You just see it clearly now. I do. Thanks again. I hung up. I wasn't worried. I felt only distant curiosity, like wondering about the weather in a city I no longer lived in. The confrontation came 2 days later. I was at the condo for a final walkthrough before handing the keys to my contractor for renovations. I stood in the empty living room measuring the windows for blinds when I heard a key turn in the lock. My key, the one I'd left for the movers. She must have kept it. The door opened. She stood there. The polished, vibrant woman from the bar was gone. This Chloe was thinner, her face pale and drawn without its careful makeup. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun. She wore leggings and an oversized sweatshirt that hung loosely on her frame. She looked young and old at the same time, a ghost haunting her own past. She lingered in the doorway, eyes scanning the empty space. The bare walls where our photos had once hung, the faint outlines in the dust where furniture had stood, the echo of a life that no longer existed. Her gaze found me. Her breath caught. Leo. I lowered the tape measure. Chloe. I lowered the tape measure. Chloe. I saw the sign, she said, her voice fragile. You're really gone. You bought it. She said it like an accusation, like I had stolen something. It's an investment, I replied, my tone neutral, sliding the tape measure into my back pocket. She stepped inside slowly, cautiously, as if entering a museum of her own collapse. Her eyes were wide and red-rimmed, searching the emptiness. It's so empty. It's sold. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Leo, I meant it. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. The words spilled out, desperate and rehearsed. That night, I was just trying to look cool in front of them. I was insecure. I didn't mean it. Not really. I didn't move. I didn't offer her a tissue. I simply watched her, listening with the detached focus of a scientist. You have to believe me, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I've been punished. Okay? I lost my job. Maya and Jenna. They abandoned me. My mom is just disappointed. I'm going to have to move back in with her. I have nothing. Nothing. She wrapped her arms around herself, and it's what I deserve. I know that now. But you were my person. You were my home. This, she gestured at the empty room. This was our home, and I ruined it. The performance had changed. No defiance, no smirk. This was raw, desperate need. It was more compelling, and somehow even more hollow. I let her words settle in the dusty air before I answered, my voice calm and steady. Yes, you did. She flinched as if I'd struck her. And you were right. I continued. Her brow tightened in confusion. What? No, I wasn't. I was wrong. You were right. I repeated gently, cutting her off. You said you'd rather die than be trapped in that life with me. I took a small step forward, not threatening, just occupying the space. It was the truest thing you ever said to me. So I set you free, and in doing that, I set myself free too. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, her prepared script unraveling. This wall, snate the reaction she'd anticipated. Not anger, not forgiveness, not cold indifference. Agreement, fagreement. But look at me, she whispered, her voice breaking completely. I'm ruined. Our life is gone. She said it like a curse, like a monument she had destroyed. I glanced around the empty condo, then back at her. My gesture wasn't nostalgic. It was final. I pointed toward the front window where the bright red sold sign stood clearly visible. That life is over. It was sold. It was a transaction. I met her eyes. My new one has no room for you, not even as a memory I bother with. I gave her the same small, serene smile I'd given her in the bar 6 months earlier, the one that had signaled the end of her world. Now it simply marked its irrelevance. The color drained from her face. This was the final devastating truth. It wasn't that I hated her. It wasn't that I was punishing her. I had simply moved on completely. She was less than a ghost. She was erased. I hope you find what you're looking for, Chloe. Truly, I said. There was no malice in it, no sarcasm, just a formal, empty courtesy. But do not contact me again. This is the last time we will speak. I walked past her toward the door. She didn't move. She stood frozen in the center of the empty room, a statue of regret in a museum no one visited. I opened the door. Afternoon sunlight poured in, outlining me in gold. Leo, she choked. One final plea. I didn't turn. I stepped onto the front walk and pulled the door shut behind me with a soft, definitive click. The sound of the lock engaging was the sound of a book closing. I walked to my truck, a newer model with a cap on the back for hauling materials. A Moto Club decal stretched across the rear window. I opened the door. The clean scent of upholstery and coffee from my travel mug met me as I climbed in. When I started the engine, I caught her in the rear view mirror. She stood at the living room window, hand pressed against the glass, her face a mask of utter desolation, watching the sold sign, watching me leave for the second and final time. I felt no triumph, no pity, just the steady hum of a capable engine, the warmth of sunlight through the windshield, the quiet, profound peace of a man driving toward a future built with his own hands, on his own terms. I shifted into drive and pulled away from the curb. I didn't look back. The past was closed property. The road ahead stretched clear, open, and mine, alone. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.